Yamuna tira vanachari Yamuna tira vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jagopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Giribharadhari Jana Balabha Giribharadhari Jashodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jashodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jashodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Isi Radha Madhava Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nithai Gaura Pramanandi Hari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He wants to introduce me. Here I am, Hare Krishna. Introduction over. No problem. I can introduce myself. We're working on a book, and it's a book about Prabhupada, my experiences with Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
And you have to translate? I think sometimes in India you have to translate the English into English. No? Because I'm not talking like this, you're not understanding what I'm saying. Because I speak like an American, right? You're not understanding. You're not understanding the English accent, yes? So we need a translator to translate English to English. Yes? It's okay, I'll tell my story. You don't have to tell. So, translation, yes, information translation.
So ಯಾರ್ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಕನ್ನಡ ಅನುವಾದ ಬೇಕು ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಈ ಸೈಡ್ ಹೋಗಿ बैक साइड कन्नड़दल्ली ट्रांसलेशन आगते हिंदी में जिसको अनुवाद चाहिए आप कृपया करके इस साइड में आइए जहाँ पे अभी सुबंधु प्रभु खड़े हैं वहाँ पे हिंदी में ट्रांसलेशन होगा यार के कन्नड़ अनुवाद बेकु दयविट्टु मथुरापति प्रभु साइड ನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ
हिंदी जानते नहीं क्या है What to do? I don't speak Hindi. So, I gave many lectures on Srila Prabhupada. The lectures were transcribed, and now they're being edited. So, people ask, well, what's going to be the title of your book? So, of course, the first thought that comes is My Memories of Prabhupada, because that's what it is. But that's already been used in other books. It's not a very exciting title, is it? I mean, it's okay. But then I thought, maybe the title should be An Ordinary Person with an Extraordinary Spiritual Master. Or maybe we could say, How an ordinary person becomes an extraordinary person when they find an extraordinary spiritual master. Yes? So you know the story. So many people came to Prabhupada, seemingly ordinary, who became extraordinary. Yes? And you also can become extraordinary, although you may not believe it. But when you have a guru who is extraordinary, then you become extraordinary. So, I met Srila Prabhupada when I was 19. I knew nothing about Krishna, or nothing about Bhagavad Gita, nothing about bhakti, nothing about yoga. I didn't even know about vegetarianism. I mean, I knew about vegetarianism, but I hadn't committed myself fully. So, major transformation, sadhu sangha, sadhu sangha, sadhu sangha, sarva shastra hoy, lava matra, sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy. So, you hear the Shastras glorify the association of pure devotee, right? Seeing, oh, my Lord, seeing you is like seeing all holy tirthas, and so many verses glorifying the pure devotee. Seeing the Ganges. Only after a long time you'll be purified bathing in the Ganges, but one sight of the pure devotee, then you'll be purified. So when I was 19, I met Prabhupada. That was in 1969. And by some inconceivable great fortune, I wasn't stupid enough to walk away from that association. I have to admit, I've done many stupid things in my life, but fortunately I didn't do that one stupid thing and not take the mercy of Prabhupada. So therefore, when you take the mercy, then even an ordinary person can become extraordinary. Or maybe you could say an ordinary person can do extraordinary things, because a devotee won't think I'm extraordinary. But a devotee can recognize by the mercy of Guru Krishna Prasade Bhaya, by the mercy of Guru, then what? Lame man can speak, a lame man can cross mountains. Mukam karoti vachalam pangulangayate girim. Yakripata maham vande Sri Guru dinat. Can see stars in the sky, can speak poetry. So, I think I had one qualification, which we all could learn from. Somehow or other, I was enthusiastic about Krishna consciousness. I just thought Krishna consciousness was wonderful, and I thought everybody should have it, and I wanted to spread it. I wanted to give it. And I think that was my qualification. I didn't have any other qualification, only disqualification. You know, if you made a list of my disqualification, then maybe you would have to hire a scribe and sit down for many days to list my disqualification. But Prabhupada was so merciful, so liberal, so accommodating, so accepting, that despite all one's qualification, if they had this one's disqualification, but if they had one qualification, that they were enthusiastic about bhakti, then he would accept them and he would say, that's all you need is enthusiasm. Utsahan, first verse of Nectar of Instruction. You need enthusiasm to do anything. So because we had enthusiasm, Prabhupada engaged us in doing the highest possible work anyone could do, giving Krishna consciousness to others. So he picks us up off the street, convinces us that this is the highest good, and 3 days later we're on the street telling people, you should become a devotee. And a week before, we weren't devotees. Amazing, isn't it? Yes. So, what I saw personally in my own life is that when I was enthusiastic, Krishna would give me service, and more service, and more service, and more service. And pretty soon, after 8 months in the movement, they made me temple president. I was so enthusiastic, they said, okay, you can be temple president. That's amazing, isn't it? Of course, in those days, it wasn't amazing. There weren't any senior devotees anyway. So by the time you're in the movement a year, you were already senior. But still, because what I saw was the people who were most enthusiastic were the ones who ended up being the leaders, because they could enthuse others. That's just my observation. If we look at the early days of ISKCON and see who were the leaders, and I'm sure it's probably the same today, but especially I remember, who became the leaders? The ones who are most enthusiastic. Because leader means you have to inspire, right? And those who are most enthusiastic, Prabhupada was giving the most service to, the most responsibility. So this is a very important quality, to be enthusiastic. Of course, someone may say, how? How to be enthusiastic? And the first verse of Nectar of Instruction doesn't tell you how, it just tells you to be enthusiastic. And that's interesting, isn't it? It's almost like Nectar of Instruction is saying, it doesn't matter how, just be enthusiastic. But Prabhu, how to become enthusiastic? Doesn't matter. Just be enthusiastic. So, and why does it say that? Because sometimes, no matter how hard you try or how hard you think why you should become enthusiastic, you're not. The modes of ignorance may be hovering around your consciousness that day, and you're not enthusiastic. So Nectar of Instruction is not saying how to be, it's just telling you, you have to be. Isn't that interesting? But Prabhu, what if I'm not enthusiastic? Just be enthusiastic. How? Just be enthusiastic. How do I do that? Just do it. That's the answer. Does that make sense? Or you're not satisfied? You want 10 reasons why to be enthusiastic. Okay, there are reasons to be enthusiastic, no question. Every page of Prabhupada's books will give you reasons to be enthusiastic. But Rupa Goswami is saying the reason to be enthusiastic is because you need to be enthusiastic to be Krishna conscious. That's the real reason. Without enthusiasm, you can't be Krishna conscious. You can't be anything. So this is something that I noticed, that as a devotee's enthusiasm increased, Krishna was giving him more service and Krishna was giving him more responsibility. And you would see that those who became the leaders in those early days were by far the most enthusiastic. Not necessarily the most renounced, not necessarily the most knowledgeable, but definitely the most enthusiastic, for sure, no question. So I was very enthusiastic, and because of that, I got the great fortune to have responsibilities in spreading Krishna consciousness. And one thing that I saw, and I see today also, which I want to share with you, is that when you take responsibilities in the service of Srila Prabhupada, in the service of ISKCON, you get tremendous amounts of mercy from Srila Prabhupada. Tremendous amounts. And also, especially when you give Krishna consciousness to others, you get so much mercy, because Prabhupada and Krishna are so pleased when you give Krishna consciousness to others. And right from the very beginning, Prabhupada trained us that Krishna consciousness, it's not just for you, it's to be shared. And in fact, unless we share it, it's going to be difficult to become Krishna conscious. That's the secret of getting it, is to give it. And so right from the beginning, even though we weren't very knowledgeable, we were new devotees, Prabhupada was asking us to give it. And we'd say, Prabhupada, we hardly know anything. He said, whatever you know, give it. It doesn't matter. Whatever you realize, whatever you know, just give it to others. And by giving it, we would get so much energy, spiritual energy, in reciprocation from Krishna, from Gauranga, from Prabhupada. And that was sustaining our spiritual life. So this is very important. It's taught in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that what you give, you get. As Mahaprabhu of the Panchatattva gave love of God, it increased. But even non-devotees say that. Whatever you want to get, give it. If you want knowledge, give it. If you want to become rich, help someone else become rich. Just help, whatever you want to get, help others get it, and you'll get it. You want enlightenment, enlighten others, you'll be enlightened. You want to be helped yourself, help others, you'll be helped. So, you want love of Krishna, give love of Krishna, you get love of Krishna. So, I don't know if you know this, but in Prabhupada's last days, he said that I'm not in a position to initiate, so he was choosing different devotees to initiate, and who would also initiate after his departure. At least that was the idea. And he was choosing those devotees who were the boldest preachers. He was choosing that you become the guru, you're the boldest preacher. Did you know that? The people who made the greatest sacrifice in preaching were the people he was choosing, as these are the best leaders of ISKCON. So he was going down the list. So-and-so did this, add him. So-and-so was ready to sacrifice his life in the field of preaching, add him. So-and-so defeated this major scientist, add him. This is how Prabhupada was determining who are the leaders of the Krishna conscious movement, by the boldness and success of their preaching. So he put extreme emphasis on it. And as I said, we found that in our lives, this was our oxygen. Giving Krishna to others was our oxygen. So enthusiasm, number one, and especially enthusiasm to give Krishna to others. This is what was sustaining us. Because all of us were very young devotees in a very young movement, in a very small movement. We had not even been to India. We didn't even know the culture that we had become part of, because we'd never seen it. We were just Americans in America. We had no idea that there were all these temples in India, and Gaudiya Vaishnavas and Sri Vaishnavas, and we had no idea there was a whole culture. You know, I mean, we had some idea, but it didn't mean anything because we never saw it. So we were being sustained by our enthusiasm to spread Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada was pushing us, pushing us, pushing us. Open more temples, distribute more books, make more devotees. And so I, as I said, maybe the smartest thing I ever did in my life was I accepted that invitation of Prabhupada. And to do that, I had to drop out of university. And so people say, do you regret having dropped out of university? Because, you know, if you drop out of university, and unless you're a businessman, how are you going to make money? You just, how do you do it unless you start your own business? You don't have a big future if you have no education, right? Especially in India. In America, maybe a little easier. But still, so many opportunities are not there. So people say, do you regret that you dropped out of university? You're only 19. And all these opportunities that you could have had, you could have become a PhD and a professor or a doctor or a lawyer. You gave that all up. Do you ever regret that? And I would always say, we were there in the beginning of the movement. We were there establishing Krishna consciousness. Do you think I would trade anything in the world for that opportunity? To be on the ground roots level of spreading Krishna consciousness? There's no way. That was the best decision I'd ever made in my life. To give myself fully to the Sankirtan movement, to helping Prabhupada establish Krishna consciousness. When I joined, there were only 17 temples and maybe 300 or 400 devotees. And to be part of that mission, in which when Prabhupada left there were 108 temples and 5,000 initiated devotees, I'd give up anything to be part of that. There were no regrets at all. It was such a great fortune to be able to serve the pure devotee and spread Krishna consciousness. And you also have the opportunity to do that. Do you have to do that? You can do it later, whatever it is? Yeah, okay. So we all have the opportunity. And you just tell somebody about Krishna. You give somebody prasadam. You give somebody a book. This is, as I said, this was sustaining us in our Krishna consciousness. This is what was getting us up every morning. This is what was empowering our japa every day. Because we needed potency to go out and convince people to become Krishna conscious. So it empowered our sadhana. And then our preaching, our sadhana empowered our preaching empowered our sadhana. They go together. So Prabhupada engaged me in different services in Sankirtan, in temple president, congregational preaching, college preaching, and now focused on education, workshops, online courses. But one time Prabhupada came to Los Angeles, and Los Angeles at that time had the BBT. All the books were being done there. It was this central distribution area for Prabhupada's books. All his books in America were being housed there. It was where the art department, who was doing all the paintings, was situated. Golden Avatar, where all the recordings you hear of Prabhupada were being recorded. Spiritual Sky Incense, which is a business that devotees started that was inspired by Prabhupada. All these departments were there, and Prabhupada visited all these departments. And Prabhupada encouraged everybody. He said, whatever you do, it doesn't matter. Just be enthusiastic and be absorbed in that service. Because whatever we do in service to Krishna, in some way, it's going to help spread Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada said, whatever you do, whether you like to sing or paint or distribute books or write books or manage or lead, whatever it is, just be enthusiastic about it. And just do it and absorb yourself. That's Krishna consciousness. And that's what Prabhupada said. Because he was going to every department. So he said, no matter this department, that department, do it enthusiastically. That's, Prabhupada was planting in our heart a seed, a Brahminical seed. Because Brahmins are concerned about others. And if you're not Brahminical, you tend to become selfish. And selfish people obviously cannot be concerned about others. So Prabhupada wanted to create a Brahminical class. He said this, but what he meant specifically by Brahminical class was a class of educators. And he said if 1% of the world becomes Krishna conscious, it'll change the whole world. The whole consciousness of the world could change. So his idea was, I will come to America, I will make Brahmins, because I can't make any in India. Nobody's interested. 1965 in India, nobody's interested in anything but technology, modernization, money, and getting away, basically, from traditional culture. So Prabhupada came to the West. So this was his idea, that he wants to make you and me Brahmins, people who have knowledge and who have compassion, both together, who will sacrifice to give that to others. That was Prabhupada's mission. And he was successful. And the way the Krishna consciousness movement will be successful is if that continues. If we continue to make Brahmins and become Brahmins ourselves, even if you're not initiated as a Brahmin, that's not the point. The idea is that you become an instrument in some way sharing Krishna consciousness with anyone, with children, with students, with corporates, with elderly people, with people in general. It doesn't matter. That was Prabhupada's mission, to create a class of men who would think about the welfare of others before they think of their own welfare. That's Krishna consciousness. And so a lot of you probably wonder how it was possible that Prabhupada could have spread Krishna consciousness with people who are so young, so inexperienced, both in the world and in bhakti. How was that possible? It seems, I think if you weren't there, you have a hard time figuring out how he could have done that. What Prabhupada did was he planted within our heart a seed of compassion. And so he had a whole army of young devotees who didn't know a lot, but they knew a lot more than everyone else in America. And that was sufficient. And they had an enthusiasm and a compassion to give Krishna consciousness to others, and they dedicated their lives to doing that. And that's why Krishna consciousness was successful. Not because they were advanced, not because they were great scholars, but because they were compassionate and enthusiastic, and they were selfless. And that's what Prabhupada wanted to create, a class of selfless people who will think about the welfare of others above themselves. And that's if we create that class of people, then automatically Krishna consciousness will spread. It has to spread. But if we create a class of people who are just concerned about themselves, about their comforts and so forth, then you get what you see in modern Hinduism, not a whole lot. Right? We found in America, after Prabhupada came and Indians started coming to America, naturally many temples started popping up, other Hindu organizations. But the thing we found is that there was no preaching, there was no education. It was just puja, basically deities and puja, samskars, and maybe social events. But no real education. So that was a contribution that Prabhupada made. And that's why ISKCON has attracted so many Indians in America. Because what Indians did not learn in India, they came to America to get rich and get a job. They learned from ISKCON in America. When they realized that they don't like American culture so much and they're missing their culture, they'd come to our temple. And then they learn Bhagavad Gita. And then they learn Bhakti. So that was, I was trying to tell this within my biography. That was my biography, but that was a biography, I think, of all the people who joined Prabhupada. That sadhu sangha, that lavamatra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy, that lavamatra, within that moment, Prabhupada placed a seed in the heart of enthusiasm to give others Krishna consciousness. And as young men and women, we sacrificed everything happily. We renounced. We were, as you know, America is a fairly wealthy country. Middle class India is like poor America. Like if you go to America and you live a life which would be considered in the lower classes, like you just get a job at McDonald's or something, and your husband, you wouldn't get a job at McDonald's. You get a job at just a low-paying job, minimum wage. You and your husband go, you get a low-paying job, you work at some store as a cashier or something. You will live on the standard of middle-class India with minimum wage in India, in America. So, what to speak of middle-class America, that's upper-class India. And upper-class America is like the top of the top of the top of what you find in India. So, our lives were quite comfortable, and then we become brahmacharis. And we slept on the floor, not even a pad, nothing, just the floor in a sleeping bag. And no hot water in the morning. Get up, take a cold shower in a cold country. That's amazing, right? We never lived that way. And then there's Mangal Artik and the whole morning program and prasadam, and then all day out on Sankirtan, distributing books, chanting. How is that possible that we would do that? And be happy doing it. So you could say you did it, but you weren't happy. No, we were happy. How is it possible? Because Prabhupada planted that seed of compassion, and helping others was more important than our own comfort, and therefore we could do that. And then sometimes we lived in vans, sleeping in cold areas of the country, living in vans so we could distribute Prabhupada's books. And we were happy doing it. We were happy making that sacrifice. In fact, we were happier than we ever had been in our entire life. And the more we were giving, the happier we were. And because we were happy, we wanted to give more. And the more we gave, the happier. And the happier, the more we wanted to give. And the more we give, the happier. And that's how Prabhupada spread Krishna consciousness. The pure devotee has the power to put that seed of selflessness and compassion in the heart. And that was the Shakti, that was the power that spread Krishna consciousness. And that will always be the power that spreads Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is not here solely for our own liberation. That's part of it. But we are also here to share whatever we're getting, whatever realizations, whatever happiness, whatever we have, we're here to share that. And Prabhupada definitely gave us that inspiration. So, that's my biography. But I think that's the biography of all Prabhupada disciples. So why don't we stop here and see if you have any questions or comments or whatever. But you can ask a question about anything. It doesn't have to be about this. And if you don't, yes. Do we have another microphone so we can hear? Anyway, how to improve your consistency, steadiness, how to be steady. Take your phone and flush it down the toilet. That should solve your problem. Prabhupada said the scientists are the greatest enemies of modern civilization. I think this is the greatest enemy of modern civilization. And there are being books written about this now. This is the source of distraction. Of course, we're joking, but it's true also. To remain steady in Krishna consciousness, it's going to require a commitment that's based in knowledge, not just sentiment. And that knowledge is coming from Prabhupada's books. So his books are essential. Because in Kali Yuga, we're very weak. Maybe you could look at Prabhupada's books like, you go to the doctor and you're very weak, and the doctor gives you an injection of B vitamins, and then, or injection of B12, yeah, B vitamins, B12, and you come out and you're all full of energy. Wow, I feel good. Yeah, you were lacking in vitamins, right? So maybe when you're feeling a lack of determination or steadiness, you can think of that example. And Prabhupada's books are like the B vitamins. So go to his books, read them, because his books will give you all the reasons you need to be steady. You see, if you want to do something, especially that doesn't come naturally, you need reasons, right? Let's say you like to eat a lot, and then you decide, I should go on a diet. Well, then, I've never gone on a diet, so I don't really know how to do that. So someone will say, well, you have to have good reasons to go on the diet. You'll feel better, you'll think better, you'll have more energy, you'll look better, whatever your reasons are. You need enough reasons to do it. Otherwise, you've never done it, and you like to eat so much. It's like, how am I I'm going to go from subjis with ghee and oil to salads and fruits. How am I going to do that? That would be like torture. I'd rather die than do that, right? But your friend says, no, but if you eat this way, then physically this will happen. You'll get mental clarity, you'll have energy. This problem that you're having when 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you get tired, you won't have it. And so they're listing all these benefits, and you're starting to feel, maybe this is a good idea. And you're getting inspired to try it because of all the benefits. That's exactly what Prabhupada does in his books. He gives you all the reasons to be Krishna conscious, and Maya gives you all the reasons not to be Krishna conscious. It's too hard, it's so fanatical, nobody really appreciates it, You can do it when you're 75, you really need to enjoy now, and etc. You get 108 good reasons from Maya why not to be Krishna conscious. So sometimes I give the example that during war, if you don't know what your enemy is doing and where they're situated, you're going to lose the war. So intelligence is always to try to understand what is the move the enemy is going to make. In America, we fought a war in Vietnam, and I think it was the first war we ever fought against guerrilla warfare. And guerrilla warfare means you don't know where the enemy is. In traditional warfare, you're here, the enemy's here, and you just fight. In guerrilla warfare, you don't know where they are. They're hiding in bushes. And so you're going looking for them, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by them. That's what happened to the Americans. They couldn't win the war in Vietnam, although Prabhupada said the Americans purposely didn't want to win the war in Vietnam because they wanted to send all the hippies and blacks to Vietnam and have them killed. That was Prabhupada's analysis. But whatever, it was really difficult to fight that war because they didn't know where the enemy is. So, or like landmines. Landmines are like little bombs. You don't know where they are, and you step on it, you blow up. So Maya's like that. You don't really know where she is and where she's coming, from what direction, what color, how fast, isn't it? And you open Prabhupada's books and he says, Maya's here. This is what she looks like. This is how she comes. This is how she dresses. This is how she makes you think. This is how she makes you act. And now you totally understand where the enemy is situated, what weapons they have, and how they're going to use them. So Prabhupada's books are like intelligence against Maya. So naturally, the nature of Maya is to cover us. So, you read one day, everything's clear. The next day, you completely forget. It's amazing, isn't it? How we can forget so easily. That's our conditioned state. So every day you read, and so every day you're reminded, oh, the enemy's here. These are the weapons they use. This is how they use the weapons. So that's what Prabhupada does. And he also gives you in his books reasons why you should win the war. So he's doing both. He's showing you how she's using her weapons and why it's important to win the war. Without that, it's hard to be steady because you need good reasons to do something that's difficult. You don't need good reasons to eat ice cream. You like to eat ice cream. Yes? Raise your hand if you like ice cream. Raise your hand if you don't know if you like ice cream. Okay, so at least those of you who raised your hand, you don't need good reasons to eat ice cream. You already have a good reason. It tastes good. That's good enough reason, right? What about what about some vegetable that's really healthy that doesn't taste good? Your mother says you should eat it. Now you need some good reasons, right? So, we're not naturally, spontaneously yet attracted, right? So we need good reasons. Well, eat this Corella, even though it's bitter, it's good for you. These are the 5 reasons. It'll clean your liver. It'll do this and that. Make your hair grow back if you're bald or something. Lose 20 kgs in 2 days. I think if I had something that could help you lose 10 kgs in a day, no matter how bad it tasted, you'd all taste it. You'd all take it, right? So, Prabhupada's books give you the reasons you need, and therefore, when you have those reasons, you can be steady. So no matter how difficult it is, it doesn't matter, because Prabhupada's showing you, you have a human life. This is a rare opportunity. Mahaprabhu's mercy. Foolish karmis, they waste their whole life collecting money and this, on and on and on. And then it's like, oh yeah, I should be serious. This is important. We forget. It's amazing. Maya Shakti is so powerful. You can have the absolute truth and you can forget it. Like that. Just forget it, right? Young boys, right? You know so many shlokas. Maybe you're a devotee from birth. You know so many shlokas. You've read so many books. And then some beautiful girl walks by and you forget every shloka in like 1 nanosecond. The whole shloka's forgotten. So beautiful. Isn't it? And then you go to Prabhupada's books and he goes, the center of attraction is sex. It what keeps you in the material world. You have to transcend that. Oh. Just, slaps you in the face. Now again you're clear. So that's why Prabhupada's books are so important, because we forget. Otherwise, why would he have spent so much time writing his books? There's one letter Prabhupada said, he said, I'm sacrificing my sleep to write these books and you're not reading them. Right? It doesn't make sense, is it? So important. So important. And we don't want a society of devotees who don't understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Hare. I have something in my throat, then I eat the tulsi, and then the tulsi's in my throat. So double trouble. Yes, is that okay? Yes. And also, well, this is the last answer to your question. You should be like me, obstinate, that I cannot stand to be defeated. So, I just don't like being defeated by Maya, even though she tries. So I'm obstinate. I just keep going. I'll never give in to Maya. Even if she knocks me over, I'll get up and fight. That we should be that smart. And if you do that, one day Maya will pay her obeisances to you, and she'll let you go back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Yes. Okay. Concentration when you're doing japa. Yeah. Oh, that is easy. That is so. It's like when Donald Trump was asked questions, he'd say, "It's easy. We'll get the Mexicans to pay for the wall. I'm good at negotiation. Everything's easy. We'll get the North Koreans to surrender all their nuclear weapons. It's easy. I'll talk to them. Concentration. It's easy. But I'll tell you how it's easy. Perhaps the biggest problem is the problem in concentration is a problem we actually create for ourselves. When you sit down to chant or when you do kirtan, if you don't stop everything else that's going on in your mind and in your life at that moment, then it's virtually impossible to be completely focused. It has to stop. Now sometimes it stops automatically after a few rounds. You get more into your rounds. But if you're thinking about what you have to do today, if you're thinking about your problems, if you're thinking about some devotee who did something wrong or said something to you that hurt you, if you're thinking about what's going to happen to ISKCON in the next 50 years, if you're thinking about even your service, that means your life is on, it's active. You're connected right now. And that's why I tell devotees, turn this off when you chant, because everything in your life is shooting through this phone. And at least start there. You have to, okay, so start here, phone's off. Step 2, everything else in your life, mentally visualize your life is plugged in. Here's work, here's home, here's family, here's school, here's money problems, here's this problem, that problem. And when you're going to chant japa, pull each one out. So now you can be with Krishna and transcend and no longer be connected with this world. Because when you chant, if you're connected with your life, how can you focus? Because you're supposed to transcend it. You're supposed to be absorbed, right? At least absorbed in hearing and praying, if not absorbed in Guna Rupa Lila, which is, of course, is more advanced. But at least, how are you going to be absorbed in Guna Rupa Lila if you're absorbed in your own Guna Rupa and Lila? Isn't it? So when it's true, it's funny, but it's true, because when we're chanting, if we haven't unplugged, then we're not meditating on Krishna's Guna Rupa and Lila, we're meditating on our Guna Rupa Lila and our samasya, all our problems. Isn't it? Sometimes we give this example in our forgiveness course, and it's so true, and it's so funny, and it's so unfortunate. Say, did you ever have a problem with a devotee that was so disturbing that through the entire japa you were meditating on that devotee? And all the devotees said, yes, that has happened to me. And I said, so how did you feel at the end of japa? Did you feel relieved of the anger? They said, no, I felt more angry. Because at the end of 16 rounds, I was more convinced that he's wrong and I'm right. So what kind of japa is that? Right? If it was actually japa, you would have just let it go. So this is not important. Let's detach. Let's focus. Let's absorb. So many of us, when we chant our rounds, we're still fully connected. You know, this is the classic. This will be the classic example of what I'm saying. See it on YouTube. It's Courtesy Japa. Have you seen that video? Have any of you seen that video? Courtesy Japa. You can go to YouTube. Courtesy, C-O-U-R-T, Courtesy Japa, and it'll show a devotee chanting, playing video games, and then WhatsApping and people talking and people driving and all these things. So obviously you can't disconnect from your life when you're driving. Right? You better be connected. So all these things are taking concentration away. So your mind is absorbed in some problem, some situation you have to resolve, some work you have to do, some service you're meditating on. How will I explain this shloka today, and how will I do the service? And if you really want to be absorbed, then for those 2 hours when you chant, just unplug. And somehow they're mentally unplugged, and you'll see that it's very. You don't really have to battle with your mind because you just unplugged it. So the problem that I see is that we have the mind plugged in and then we're trying to control it. And so the mind is naturally not absorbed in japa. It's absorbed in what it normally is absorbed in, which is what you have to do. So once you pull the plug, if you can do it, the plug has legs. It'll plug itself back in. So it's a process. But at some point automatically, when you begin chanting, you'll unplug, because that will be the mode in which you chant, and it will never replug, because you understand that to chant, to be absorbed, I have to be unplugged. That's what chanting means. That's what it means. Same in reading or doing puja. Like devotees say, Prabhu, is it okay, I don't have a lot of time, is it okay to chant while I drive? I go, yeah, no problem. Get your Jagannath deities. Since you don't have time, you can do your Mangal Arti while you're driving. And you can dress them while you're driving. Good idea? Can you concentrate? Do you talk on the phone while you do Arti? So Prabhupada said, when you chant the holy name, Krishna's appearing. It's no different than the deity. So why would you drive and chant? If you wouldn't do Arti and drive, why would you drive and chant? If you wouldn't dress the deities and drive. So you have to think, when we go on the altar, we definitely unplug, isn't it? It's very awkward to be on the altar and be plugged in. We know we're with Krishna and we're absorbed. So why should it be any different when you chant japa? Because that is Krishna. And so you want to give your attention to the relationship. So in my experience, the strenuous effort to control the mind is much easier if you just unplug it, because there's not much to control. You actually don't need your mind to chant. It's not necessary. You need your heart. And so the heart is the subtle aspect of the mind, thinking, and then there's feeling. Feeling is the subtle aspect, and then willing. So you don't need the gross aspect. Now, there is a gross aspect, you could say transcendentally, thinking of Krishna Lila. But worry about that later, when that will come naturally in the spiritualized mind. So this simple thing it makes a huge difference, because now you can absorb. It's like your wife wants to talk to you, and you're doing some business, and a lot of meetings are going on. Like you say, can I talk to you later, because I can't concentrate now. I can't unplug now, so I won't be able to listen to you. And you say, in a half hour the meeting will be over, then I'll come home. And so you hang up all the phones, you turn off your cell phone, you come home and say, now I can listen. It's the same with japa. As long as that's going on, you're not going to be able to listen to your wife. Of course, men may never be able to listen to their wives. That's another topic. But in this analogy, you were able to listen to her because you put everything else aside. So it's the same thing. You put everything else aside, and then it's just Krishna. Try it and see if it works. Yes. I only have 30 minutes a day to either read or hear. Should I read Prabhupada's books, hear from senior devotees, or here on YouTube? If you only have 30 minutes a day to hear, something's wrong. You're either sleeping too much or working too hard. So you should read Prabhupada's books at least an hour a day. Read Prabhupada's books 1 hour a day just to keep your intelligence sharp. Of course, what Prabhupada said, because this question was asked to him. Actually, I'll tell you a story. This is such a funny story. I don't know if it'll enlighten you or confuse you, but I will tell you. So, in 1972, there were two sannyasis, they'd just taken sannyas, and they were fired up, as fired up 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds. And they were so enthusiastic about Prabhupada's books that they were preaching every day you should read a little of every one of Prabhupada's books. So at that point, there were 5 books. So you had Krishna book, Gita, Bhagavatam, Nectar of Devotion, and Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So he said every day you should read those books. And so they would come to the temples and say, okay, after breakfast, we're going to have class on a couple more of those books. Every evening, after Gita class, then we'll do Nectar Devotion, Krishna book. And so we'll get all the 5 books done. And the temple president is thinking, but if they do that, they're going to go out on Sankirtan late, and they're going to come back early, and it's influencing the book distribution. But you can't just tell these enthusiastic sannyasis, you can't do that, because who are you? You're just the temple president, and they're a sannyasi, so you can't really stop them. Or difficult to stop them. So, because he couldn't talk to them, he wrote to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada stopped it. He said, 1 hour class in the morning, 1 hour class in the evening, and then whatever free time you read. So I don't know if we always have 1 hour in the evening. So if you don't have a 1 hour class in the evening, so we can say read 1 hour. But that was Prabhupada's. He wanted us to read his books, but he would say 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. Now here's the funny part of the story. So around this time, shortly after, not too far after, there were some problems in the temple. Big problems. I don't know the details, but there were a lot of problems. And you know what Prabhupada said? He said, every day you should have classes on all my books because of the problems in the temple. So, I would say how much you read would depend on what your service is, what your position is. If you're a leader and you're not reading a lot, that's not good because you have to be more knowledgeable and more Krishna conscious than everyone. If you're a preacher, obviously you should be studying a lot. If you're Brahmanically initiated, you don't want to be a fool, right? So I think, and as one of our godbrothers said, it also depends on how much you can digest. Maybe you can only digest a half hour of reading, and so, okay, the other half hour I'll listen to a lecture. But some devotees can digest 2 hours of reading or 3 hours of reading, and maybe they'll get up early in the morning to do that. So, Prabhupada's mood was not that you say, oh, I can't do seva because I have to read 3 hours because I have big digestion. Mahatman Prabhu said, if you can digest 3 hours of Bhagavatam, read 3 hours a day. Yeah, that's fine, but not to minimize your service. So, it's relative. But as a general principle, every day we should try to read for an hour. That will help a lot. That will help as a basic. And then after that, classes and hearing and so forth. But it's very important because the problem for some devotees is not a problem per se, but they'll hear from their guru and to the exclusion of reading Prabhupada's books. So that's not good. Everyone should be reading his books every day. In fact, 2 years ago, I was at a meeting. It was an invitation to the GBC, to the gurus and sannyasis. So not every sannyasi and every guru was there, but most of them were there, and the GBC was there. And they asked us individually, what do we think are the biggest problems facing ISKCON going into the future? Like, what will be the biggest problem facing ISKCON in the future based on how things are going today? And everybody wrote down and they tallied, and they came up with 3 or 4 problems that were considered by everyone there to be the most serious. And from those 3 or 4 problems, they took a vote and said, what do you think of these problems is the number one problem? And unanimous, I don't know if it's unanimous, but it was agreed the number one problem is that devotees are not reading Prabhupada's books enough. That's the number one problem facing ISKCONs, meaning that will be the cause of failure. The number one cause of success, the cause of failure will be the lack of reading or the reading of Prabhupada's books. That was the conclusion. That was 2 years ago. So that's interesting, isn't it? You find that interesting? The second one was bad leadership, and the third one I forgot. The third one I think was kind of a ritualistic attitude, niyamagraha, I think. Don't quote me. But definitely the second one was untrained leadership. So, I think that's important. These are the, most senior people in the movement. This is their consideration because they're seeing the devotees aren't reading Prabhupada's books, and they're very concerned about it. So, we can't always say, it's like saying, how long should it take to chant around? Well, 6 minutes, 5.5, 7, 8. It's going to vary. So how much do you need to read? Maybe you need to read more. You're a brahmachari. You want to keep your brahmachari. Maybe I need to read more. Right? Maybe I'm a grihasta working 10 hours a day. Even I want to read more. I come from work. My mind is... And then there's the kids there and they need my attention, And, so your austerity is less. Maybe you can get by with reading a little, and maybe practically you can't read more. So it's going to be relative. But everybody gets so much strength from reading Prabhupada's books. But also, we don't want to be sentimental. Why are you Krishna conscious? Oh, I don't know. My grandmother was, that's why. No. You want to know. You want to have knowledge. You want to understand Vedanta, Siddhanta. Right? One time, the devotees were with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada would read something. It was like in the evening, this was a class, just a small group of Prabhupada's servants, and they're traveling. So they'd read something, and then Prabhupada would say, okay, discuss. He liked the devotees would discuss. Read something, discuss. Read in groups, discuss. You know what some devotees are doing now? They're finding that although we distributed so many books, people aren't reading them. So they're forming reading groups. In some places, they actually get names of all the people who got books, and they contact them and say, oh, every Monday night at 8 o'clock in this home, we're doing a reading and discussion. So, we have to get people to read. We have to get ourselves to read. Like book clubs. They have book clubs. People read a book, they come together, they discuss the book. So Prabhupada liked that. Discussion. Read, okay, what's the point? Discuss philosophy. And then one time I was in Los Angeles, and Prabhupada was there. And one sannyasi had just come down. It was the evening. Prabhupada was giving darshan to some leaders. And he would spend time with leaders. He would spend a lot of time with leaders to inspire them. So this leader came down, so naturally if someone had just been in Prabhupada's room, you want to ask, well, what did Prabhupada say? What was the discussion? And he said that Prabhupada said we're all philosophers and we should always be discussing philosophy. Looking at Krishna, as Prabhupada said, look at it from different points of view. What about this and this point? It could be this. And Jiva Goswami says this, Rupa Goswami says that. And if you add this point to Prabhupada purport, then we understand this. And this all just helps us transcend. Just discussing Krishna from so many perspectives. It inspires us, it helps us transcend. And it clarifies us, and it solves your problem of consistency. And then the first time I went to Vrindavan was 1975. We went to Rupa Goswami, Radha Damodar temple. And we went to the place where the Goswamis would sit and discuss Krishna. And the devotee giving us a tour, he was the temple president of Vrindavan, he said, this is the most important place because this is where the Goswamis got all their realizations because they sat and discussed things together. And you may know when Prabhupada, I think it was in Allahabad, his godbrother Sridhar Swami, he gave him a room on top of his house. And Prabhupada said they used to have many, many, many discussions on very, very high topics. Prabhupada would say that we had discussed. He said, my godbrother has many high realizations. We'd have discussions of many high topics. And so these things are important. I have godbrothers. Every year they go to Govardhan, and for 1 month they read Prabhupada's books together for 6 hours a day for the whole Kartik. So very important to. That's a very important thing for them. They hear and they discuss. They go more deeply. They clarify anything that needs to be clarified. More deeply understand what they thought they understood. These things are very important. So, how much can you digest, and what can you digest? That's a question of how much you read. But I would recommend generally an hour, and if that's difficult, form groups, read together and discuss. Especially if you're not having evening class. And Prabhupada gave us so many books, and there's so many other books. How are you going to read them all? Of course, Prabhupada said we're not bookworms. We're not just accumulating knowledge. That's not the goal. But at least we can remember that the leaders of the movement are very concerned that devotees are not reading Prabhupada's books. So you can plant that as a seed in your mind right now. The leaders of ISKCON are concerned that you and I are not reading Prabhupada's books enough. You can tattoo that thought in your brain. Anything else? Anything? What's that? Yes. Yes, yes. Yes. He's asking, there are so many shastras that describing different gods, and sometimes apparently describing the supremacy of God. So how do we understand Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Well, the simplest answer is that he says he is. In Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate. There's nothing beyond me. But to me, as an American who didn't know that there were other gods, and reading all the references in Shastra, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam ete chansa kalam punsam krishnastu bhagavan soyam, to me it was like, why is there any confusion? It's very clear. And so many other Shastras, that. But then we understand, as you say, there are other Shastras presenting other so-called Siddhantas. But one thing we understand about those Shastras is that the Shastras were meant for different people. And so you have Puranas in different modes of nature. Some are tamasic. So they're aimed, the tamasic Puranas, well, the Purana's not tamasic, but it's aimed for people who are more tamasic. Some Puranas aim for people who are more rajasic. Some who are more sattvic. So as Vaishnavas, we of course listen to the Sattvic Puranas, and of course Srimad Bhagavatam as the ultimate Purana. And so that's where the confusion comes. So, maybe Shiva Purana says he's supreme. Yeah, he is supreme in a limited sphere of supremacy. So I think the problem that we run into is sentimentalism as opposed to actual Siddhanta. So, most people are not that scholarly, and they stick with tradition. So let's say you were born as a Shaivite, and that's what you've heard from your grandmother, your father, and someone says Krishna's God. That's going to be hard to accept, even if they quote the shlokas and the verses, because you'll have rationale. Well, that's just for these people, or that's not really true, but Krishna said that for this reason. So, but if you study Shastra, you'll see it all falls into place when you study the Sattvic Shastras and Bhagavatam. I mean, you want an esoteric answer, the highest rasa can only be achieved with Krishna. The most intimate rasa between the living, the jiva, and God can only be with Krishna. It can't be with Vishnu, it can't be with Shiva, it can't be with Durga. It can only be with Krishna. Love in conjugal, or love in friendship, or parental love. You won't even see that in Vaikuntha with Narayan. Right? What to speak of Lord Shiva? The relationship that the bhaktas have with Lord Shiva is usually of Shiva giving something. So, it's not even really love yet. And then you'll find love with Narayan, Sitaram, like that, Narayan, Lakshmi Narayan. But the love you'll find in Braj between Krishna and his devotees, that's incomparable. So from that point of view, that's obviously the highest, because it's the most intimate and the highest relationship. And that's it's most esoteric, and therefore it's not understood so well. So then people say Krishna is under Narayan. But Shastra says he's the source of all incarnations. Anyway, so much could be said. But that's a general idea. But from the point of view of rasa, yeah, the highest rasa is with Krishna, for sure. Yes? We stop? Some announcements. If you have, because it's late, if you have any other questions, then I'll just stay here after class and you can come and ask. And I have some CDs of my workshops, so Sureshwar is going to put them somewhere, I don't know where, if you're interested. And I have a USB